There's a number of principles and lessons that I have prepared to share with you today, but I'm gonna blanket them into three major parts. And the first one has to do with vision. And I have an anchor scripture for this, which comes from Genesis 13. So I'm going to leave you to read the entire passage yourself. I'll be focusing on specific verses, but I'm going to share the gist with you. So Abram and his nephew, they had amassed some form of wealth. They were moving together, traveling together, doing things together. That's what the scripture makes us understand. But it got to a point where they had to settle. They set up their tents and their camps, and they were essentially living side by side. But what was happening was that they started to experience conflict. Even if it wasn't conflict with both of them directly, but it was conflict with their people. So let me say the people in their family or their camp or their team started to quarrel. And so Abram and Lot decided that it was time to part ways. So Abram came to his nephew and he said, look at all of this vast land. You can just choose anywhere that you want to reside and you're going to go and stay there. It's evident that we're growing so fast, but we cannot share resources anymore. So this is basically them splitting up into like different nations. That's essentially what is happening. And so they separate. Now the verse I really want us to focus on is from verse 14, and I'm going to read that to you. I'm reading the NLT version. It says, after Lot had gone, the Lord said to Abram, look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I am giving all this land to you, as far as you can see, to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. I will give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted. Go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you. I honestly love this verse. Now, my first point is about vision, and it's really important for you to understand a couple of things. Number one is that for there to be vision, sometimes there has to be separation, and separation could be from things you're already comfortable with, from conflicts, from distractions. And from this story, it has to do with Abram and his nephew Lot. They were growing together. They had already amassed some kind of wealth or something that they were doing, but God actually needed to give Abram a new vision, a new purpose. And what had to happen for that vision to come to life was a form of separation. There has to be some form of silence. So what you have to do in this context is that, yes, you might not be able to part ways with certain things physically the way Abraham and Lot parted ways, but you need to have some quiet time where you can actually sit down and listen to God's instructions to you. This is so important. Now, my focus for this verse is God told Abram that look as far as you can see in every direction, north and south, east and west. I am giving all this land as far as you can see. This is about vision. Just think about the fact that when Abraham and Lot were moving around, setting up their tents, let me say that it's a vast land. Just think about an empty plot of land and you go and set up your tent. And God tells you that you should look around, east, west, everything you can see, He's going to give it to you. Let's be very honest. What can you really see? There's really so much you can actually see. By the time you do a 360, you can't see the entire world. You can only see the area that you're actually operating in. And that's just something we have to be conscious of. But what God was actually trying to tell Abraham at this point is that it's not necessarily about the vision of your two eyes and what you're seeing. It is more or less about your mind's eye, what you can conceive, what you can consume, what you can even imagine. Imagine that he was just thinking about that small area that he had set up his tent. But God was genuinely telling him that I'm going to give you descendants. I'm going to promise you something that is so big that you can't even imagine. It's like the dust of the earth, something that you can't even count. Now, the next verse 17 says, go and walk through the land in every direction, for I am giving it to you. And if I'm actually going to take this on a very practical perspective, how much walk could he actually take? Like, what's the distance he could actually even cover? But God told him to go and walk the land. He wanted him to actually see, like, these are the possibilities of what I can give to you and what I am actually promising you. Now, how this applies to my business, how I've applied it to my business is that to a certain extent, what you can do for yourself, the growth for your business, the plans you have, God has promised us a lot of it, more than we can imagine, but we actually need to see it. Sometimes you can just look at your business that, oh, it's just this small place that I'm doing. I just want to continue here and push here, but there's actually a larger vision for us and we need to actually consume it. It is in our mind's eye. So first and foremost, for every growth that has to happen, you need to really, really think about the vision. And if you feel like God has actually called you to build something tangible, something big, and you're kind of struggling with what that vision should be, you need to have a separation. A separation meaning you need quiet time. You need to pray about it. You need to talk to God about it. You need to think about it. What does this vision even entail? How can I see this promise? How can I even open up my mind? Like, that is such an important prayer that we need to have as believers, as business people, as people that are looking to grow and expand, to actually take charge and dominion over like the piece of land, the wealth that we are promised. What does the vision look like? It's really, really important. Now, my next point, I've kind of bundled a couple of things together, and this is because of the story that I want to share. This one is on work, on weights, and on setbacks. There's really one foundational thing that we have to understand, and it's here in the Bible, that there's no such thing as heaven on earth, as people say. You're going to struggle. It's just part and parcel of being a human being, of living on this earth. But there are certain promises for us as believers that we hold very, very tightly. And my anchor scripture is still from Genesis. This is from Genesis 26. Now, this is a story of Isaac. So I still want you to go and read the entire scripture and the entire passage, but I'm going to give you the gist. So Isaac was living in a land belonging to someone called Abimelech. And Isaac was living on that land, and the Bible actually records that Isaac was doing so well. He was already rich, just like his father Abraham. But Isaac started to basically get haters. The people in the land were hating on him. They were just tired that, why is this guy doing so well? That's just to tell you that even when you're blessed and there are promises for you, the wickedness of man is actually the truth. It is evident. We see it every day. Sometimes when people cry about haters, I know that yes, it's not always the ideal to dwell on such things or to allow it to kind of move you from where you're supposed to be, or that to be your focus point, but it is real and it actually exists. But that is not our focus. So the Bible actually records from verse 12, it said, when Isaac planted his crops that year, he harvested 100 times more grain than he planted, for the Lord blessed him. It is a fact that he was blessed. Verse 15 says that, so the Philistines filled up all of Isaac's wells with dirt, the wells that had been dug by the servants of his father Abraham. Just think about it. You're doing so well, you're minding your business, you're growing, you're prospering, but the devil is here to actually pour sand in your gari, as our people will say. And then verse 16 says, finally, Abimelech ordered Isaac to leave the country. Go somewhere else, for you have become too powerful for us. I think sometimes we can look at certain scriptures and they might feel a bit out of touch, but you can bring it into context that imagine you're doing so well, you secured a property that you want to use for your business, and all of a sudden your landlord is like, can you leave this place? I want to increase my rent. I don't want you here anymore. Or for so many reasons that you can't even understand, that might sound more relatable than somebody telling you to your face that you have become more powerful, like you genuinely have to leave this place. But the truth is that these stories in the Bible are real, they are true, they are people. It's just that the context might be different. You might have planted yourself somewhere, you're already doing great in that place and in that work, but something will come up and it will look as though like, I thought God has promised me a lot of blessings. Like, why is this challenge now even coming up? But this is genuinely the story of Isaac. And what happened? Isaac had to pack up from somewhere that it had already been recorded earlier that the Lord blessed him with 100 times more grain than he planted. Now let's kind of reference what we're talking about here. We're talking about working, we're talking about waiting, and we're talking about setbacks. The truth is that in the life of a believer, as someone who is building something, you need to be conscious of the fact that these are realities that you cannot escape. You have to do the work, you have to wait, and there will be setbacks. In this context, Isaac had done some work, he had planted, he had even reaped. He waited though for the time to reap, which is what? Him receiving more grains, but there was a setback. Now he goes into another country. He now decides that based on the vision that was given to his father, he wants to continue building on that vision. He wants to continue building that business that God has already put in your heart. And they go ahead and they start to dig wells. This is so important. It says in verse 17, so Isaac moved away from the Gerar Valley where he set up their tents and settled down. He reopened the wells his father had dug, which the Philistines had filled in after Abraham's death. Isaac also restored the names that Abraham had given them. It's important to note that there's a vision and you're not deviating from that vision that God has put in your heart. So Isaac's servant also dug in the Gerar Valley and discovered a well of fresh water. Now this is so interesting because someone tells you to leave, you go somewhere else and you actually say, let me now plant that seed again, let me start my business again, let me start promoting my content or doing so many things again. And what happened? He said, but then the shepherds from Gerar came and claimed the spring. He said, this is our water. Again, imagine that you're doing well somewhere else, you decide to move every single thing because of a setback, but with that vision in mind, and you've come and you're now digging another well and people are like, this is our water. But I think I just want to say, maybe it's not like I'm preaching right now, but I just want to say that the fact that you can even move from where you are to the next location and you can even find water is something of significance. It's just something to show that you are genuinely blessed. And wherever you actually go and work, the works of your hands are blessed because you can actually see the fruits of them. Isaac's men, this is verse 21, then dug another well. But then again, there was dispute over it. So Isaac named it Sitnah, which means hostility. Verse 22, abandoning that one, Isaac moved on and dug another well. This time, there was no dispute over it. And Isaac named the place Rehoboth, which means open space. For he said, at last, the Lord has created enough space for us to prosper in this land. What a beautiful testimony. The point of this is that there's work. That is a reality. There's weight. When you carry your load, you're doing the work. You dig the ground, you dig to the point where you will even find water. That is the concept of working, of waiting, but there were setbacks. And I think it's really important for us as Christians, as believers, as business owners to understand that in the way that life is designed, these principles are true. There will be work, there will be wait, there will be setbacks, but there is a promise. And we really need to hold on to that there is the Rehoboth, the open space that you just know in your heart that God has created enough space for us to prosper in the land. Now, the next point that I want to touch on is hindsight and gratitude. Now, when a lot of these things are happening, let's just even take the story of Abraham that we've read, or even the story of Isaac. It looks as though like, is God not present? I thought God gave me this vision for my business and it looks like this is not really going on well. This is not happening well. But why I love the concept of hindsight is that by the time you look at it, you'd see that there's a pattern. God has a pattern of being faithful to his people, to his children, on fulfilling his promises. So it's like in hindsight, I actually genuinely see that this God who saw me through this process, who even gave me this vision of this business, of this thing I want to grow, of this digital product, of this YouTube channel, he actually has a plan for me and I am grateful. These things really help to build our faith, because when your faith is not strong at the end of the day, when these challenges come, it looks like I might as well just give up. But you know that it is genuinely that faith that will actually keep you from today and allow you to actually move on to the next day, to dig the next well. Imagine that they had even told him that, forget about this well, there's nothing here, just leave it and go. It's not for you, it's our own, it's our water. And the guy said, they've chased me, let me just forget about it, let me pack it up. In fact, all my whole servants, as they moved us from that first property, from our landlord, as the landlord chased us from that property, there's nothing again. As Instagram disabled my page, there's nothing for me again, right? But it is genuinely that faith that you have to hold on to build. So I hope you've learned learned something from this video. It's important that we learn to do the work. It's important that we learn to keep the faith. And most of all, we need to have the vision for your business, for your growth, for your brand. It can only come from God. So if you like this video, if you like more content like this, definitely hit the subscribe button, and I'm going to see you guys in the next video.